Family responsibilities or family betrayal. My Thanksgiving reality. Welcome to Silent Wars. In today's video, we'll be diving into the emotional complexities of family betrayal and how they affect our daily lives. We all face the balancing act between our personal needs and the duties we have toward our families. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the weight of family betrayal, this video is for you. Make sure to like and subscribe to Silent Wars for more content that helps you navigate the ups and downs of life. On Thanksgiving, the unthinkable happened. My family, in a sudden cold decision, voted me out of the family. The shock of being publicly excluded, particularly during such a significant family holiday, was overwhelming. It wasn't the first time I had felt pushed aside, but this act was different. They weren't just excluding me, they were stripping away my identity within the family. The moment my sister Natalie stood up at the dinner table and casually dropped the news, my world stopped. "We've decided you're not family anymore," she said, as if it were a simple statement, as if I was nothing more than an inconvenience. And yet, there was no remorse, no apology, just a smug look from her, and laughter from the others as they joined in, applauding her decision. My stomach churned as I realized what they had been planning all along. I sat there, paralyzed. My mother, instead of comforting me, chimed in with a laugh, saying, "Well, someone had to say it." My father remained silent, sipping his beer, as if my exclusion didn't even deserve a response. My cousins and siblings seemed to agree, and the silence that followed was deafening. I was no longer the person they thought would always be there for them. The emotional weight of their words and actions hit me like a tidal wave, but instead of breaking down in front of them, I stood my ground. I knew something had to change. For years, I had been the one holding everything together financially, emotionally, and physically, but they never seemed to appreciate it. They never asked. They just expected. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, carefully placing it on the table. The sound of it hitting the surface echoed in the room, silencing the smug chatter. As my sister ripped open the folder with a scoff, she quickly stopped laughing. Her expression changed from smug confidence to shock and disbelief. Inside the folder were years of receipts, screenshots, and emails, tangible proof of all the money I had lent to my family, the favors I had done, and the promises they had made that were never fulfilled. Over the last 5 years alone, I had provided nearly $78,000 to various family members. I had paid for dental surgeries, credit card debts, tuition, and even emergencies that turned out to be nothing more than vacations. All the while, my family treated me like I was just an ATM with legs, not as someone who deserved love, respect, or even basic consideration. When my sister saw the full extent of what I had documented, she screamed, "You messed up, twisted weirdo." But I wasn't the one who had messed up. I had been used, exploited, and manipulated for years, and now I had proof of it all. As they all sat in stunned silence, I finally spoke. "You've been treating me like this for years. I've been the one sacrificing everything, but you've never seen me as family. You've seen me as a resource, a way to make your lives easier." The words flowed out of me like a dam that had finally broken, and in that moment, I realized the truth. I was done. I wasn't angry anymore, not at them. I was angry at myself for allowing it to go on for so long. But I was also free. I was no longer going to be their scapegoat or their convenient solution. The folder had done its job. The truth was out, and now they would have to face the consequences of their actions. The realization that I had been living a lie within my own family came like a storm, but it was a storm I needed. After years of being the dependable one, the one everyone relied on, the one who paid the bills, provided loans, and even took care of everyone's personal problems, I finally understood that I wasn't doing it out of love. I was doing it because my family expected it, because they needed me to do it. And the moment I stopped, the moment I decided I had had enough, they turned on me. It started with my mother's 60th birthday. It was supposed to be a special occasion, a family gathering to celebrate her. But what I didn't know was that the celebration had already been planned without me. My family had decided to go on a luxurious ski trip in Colorado for the week, and they wanted me to take care of their 5 children while they enjoyed their vacation. They didn't ask me if I wanted to go. They didn't ask if I had any plans. They just assumed I would be there, ready to play the role of the babysitter, as I always had. When I was told, I was stunned. My mother had already made arrangements without consulting me, and my sisters, rather than expressing any appreciation for the sacrifices I had made over the years, simply expected me to accept the responsibility. My younger sister, who had always been the golden child of the family, made a remark about how I didn't have anything else to do because I didn't have children of my own. The insinuation was that I had no life, no obligations, no reason not to watch their kids while they took a break. This was the first crack in the illusion I had built around my role in the family. The more they dismissed me and my feelings, the more I realized that I had been trapped in a toxic cycle of expectation. Over the years, I had put my own needs aside, always prioritizing my family's desires over my own. From the time I was 16, cooking dinner while my mother helped my sisters with homework, to the time I paid for half of my sister's wedding when my parents couldn't afford it, I had been the one everyone relied on. I was the one who silently shouldered their burdens without ever asking for anything in return. But when I finally stopped giving, when I finally said no, they treated me like the villain. I took a step back and started looking at everything with a clearer perspective. I realized that I had been used. My family didn't care about me. They only cared about what I could do for them. They had never once considered what I wanted or needed, and now that I had stopped enabling them, they couldn't handle it. The truth was, I had been nothing more than a resource, a free source of financial and emotional support for them. And once I stopped providing, they discarded me like yesterday's news. So, I did what I had to do. I pulled out a thick folder that I had carefully prepared, filled with receipts, bank transfers, and texts proof of all the financial help I had given to my family over the years. I showed them everything: the $78,000 I had given, the loans I had co-signed, the payments for their medical bills, the tuition I had paid. It was all there. The truth was right in front of them, and for the first time, I didn't protect anyone. I didn't shield them from the consequences of their actions. As my sister opened the folder and saw everything laid out in black and white, she screamed in horror. The family, once so eager to judge me, was now silent. The tables had turned. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. I was done. I was free. After that moment, everything changed. I started living for myself. I stopped answering to them, stopped sacrificing my time, my money, and my energy. And as I took control of my own life, I realized just how much they had taken from me. The burden of their expectations, their manipulation, and their demands was lifted, and in its place was a newfound sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I could breathe, and it felt like the world had opened up to me. Now, when I think about them, I don't feel guilt or regret. I feel peace. I feel strength. And while I may have lost my family in a traditional sense, I gained something much more important: my own life back. The lesson I learned from this experience was simple but profound. You are not obligated to sacrifice yourself for anyone, not even family. Real family is about mutual respect, love, and support, not about what you can give. And I'm no longer willing to be anyone's scapegoat. For most of my life, I had been the family's go-to person. I was always the reliable one, the one they could count on when things got tough. But no one ever asked if I needed help, or if I wanted to be the one who always sacrificed. It wasn't until the Thanksgiving incident that I realized how much I had been taken for granted, and how much I had allowed myself to be used. It all began with my mother's 60th birthday. My sisters, eager to celebrate, decided on a luxurious trip to Colorado. They planned it without so much as asking if I wanted to join, if I had any plans, or if I even wanted to spend time with them. They had already decided I would watch the kids, all 5 of them, while they went on vacation. My mother's response to my shock was typical. She assumed I'd be fine with it because, after all, I had no children of my own. To her, that meant I had nothing better to do than to be the family's default babysitter. The worst part wasn't the request itself, it was the way they casually expected me to agree. They had planned everything without involving me. They took my money for the trip, and then they assumed I'd be happy to look after the kids. When I refused, it wasn't met with understanding or compromise. Instead, I was met with anger, guilt-tripping, and accusations of being selfish. My sisters were upset that I wasn't playing along with their plans, and my mother quickly joined in, all too willing to brush aside my feelings in favor of maintaining their idea of a perfect family vacation. At that moment, something shifted within me. The years of quietly sacrificing for my family, of being the one who always stepped up, finally caught up with me. I had been paying for things they couldn't afford, watching their children without complaint, and always putting my own needs aside for theirs. But when I stopped, when I decided that enough was enough, the family reacted as though I had betrayed them. The truth was, I wasn't betraying anyone. I was simply taking care of myself for the first time in years. I didn't just stop there, though. I started documenting everything, all the money I had sent over the years, all the loans I had co-signed, all the requests for help that had come without any gratitude or appreciation. I kept receipts, screenshots, bank transfers, and even their mocking social media posts about me. I had always been the family's cash cow, but I wasn't going to be used anymore. So, I prepared a folder with everything I had endured, and I brought it to the table that Thanksgiving. When I opened the folder, the shock on their faces was priceless. The truth, laid out in black and white, could no longer be ignored. My sister Natalie's smug attitude quickly turned to horror as she realized everything she had done, everything I had sacrificed, had been documented. I had finally fought back. I wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. What followed was a tense silence as they processed what they had done to me. My mother and father, too, were forced to confront their actions. They had always treated me as the dependable one, the one who would always be there for them. But I was done. I wasn't going to be their emotional and financial crutch any longer. When I walked away that day, I wasn't just leaving a toxic family gathering, I was leaving behind a life of constant self-sacrifice. I went home that night and felt something I hadn't in years: peace. The next few weeks were a mix of silence and guilt trips from my family, but I didn't respond. I was free. I had taken back control of my life, and for the first time, I realized that saying no was the healthiest decision I had ever made. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And in the end, I didn't regret it. For years, I had been the family's go-to person, the reliable one they could always count on. I thought it was just what families do for each other. But the Thanksgiving dinner was a wake-up call that made me realize how much I had been taken for granted. My family, particularly my mother and sisters, had never truly appreciated all I had done for them. Instead, they expected me to keep giving without a second thought to my own needs. It all started when my mother's 60th birthday came around. My sisters and the rest of the family had planned a week-long vacation to a resort for the occasion, but when I was finally told about it, it wasn't framed as an invitation, it was more like an announcement. The plan had been made without me, and what's worse, they expected me to watch all 5 of my nieces and nephews while they were away. The decision wasn't even up for discussion. The assumption was that because I was single and didn't have children of my own, I had nothing better to do than be the family's default babysitter. At first, I was shocked and hurt. I had always been the one to help out, to pitch in when things got tough. I had covered wedding costs, paid for surgeries, and provided financial assistance whenever it was needed. But when I stopped giving, when I refused to be taken for granted any longer, my family turned on me. My mother's response was dismissive. She assumed I'd be fine with the idea because, as she put it, I didn't have real responsibilities. My sisters, too, jumped on board, guilt-tripping me for not wanting to spend my time helping out with the kids. It was as if my life didn't matter, as if I was just a resource for them to tap into whenever it was convenient. The most painful part wasn't just the request to watch the kids. It was the realization that I had allowed this to happen for years. I had been the reliable one, the person who always helped, the one who always said yes, even when it meant putting my own life on hold. But I had never been asked if I wanted to be part of the plan, never once asked what I needed. It had always been about what they wanted from me, never about what I wanted or needed. So, I decided it was time to change. I walked away from that Thanksgiving dinner, leaving behind a family who had never truly seen me for who I was. The emotional weight of constantly being used was lifted off my shoulders for the first time in years. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was the right decision. I wasn't going to be the doormat anymore. I wasn't going to be the one who was always there when no one else could be bothered. I didn't just walk away from that dinner. I walked away from years of unacknowledged sacrifices. It was hard, especially when they tried to manipulate me with guilt. My mother and sisters sent messages, blaming me for ruining their plans, for betraying the family. But I stood firm. I didn't give in to their demands. Instead, I focused on taking care of myself, on putting my own needs first for the first time in a long time. It felt good to finally say no. I had spent so many years of my life supporting them without question, but when I stopped, I realized that they didn't care about me. They only cared about what I could do for them. In the end, I didn't regret walking away. I didn't regret choosing myself over them. And for the first time in years, I was free. For years, I had played the role of the reliable, always there family member. I'd become the go-to person whenever anyone needed financial help, emotional support, or a last-minute favor. I took pride in being the dependable one, the person who never hesitated to say yes when it came to family. But over time, I began to feel the toll it took on me. My generosity was no longer appreciated. It was expected. And it wasn't until Thanksgiving that I finally realized just how much my family had taken me for granted. It started innocently enough with the announcement of my mother's 60th birthday. My sisters and the rest of the family had been planning a week-long getaway to a resort to celebrate. But when the time came to share the details, it was clear that I was an afterthought. The plans had already been made, and not once had anyone thought to ask if I wanted to be part of the trip. Worse still, they wanted me to stay behind and take care of 5 young children while they were away, as if it were an automatic assumption that I had nothing better to do with my time. At first, I was stunned. I'd always been the one to step up, to help whenever someone needed it. But when I finally said no, when I told them I didn't want to be the babysitter this time, the response was harsh. My mother brushed it off, claiming that I wouldn't enjoy the trip anyway, and my sisters seemed to think I was being selfish for not wanting to help. It was as if my own needs, my own desires, didn't matter. They assumed that because I was single and didn't have children, I had nothing else to do but watch their kids and support them financially. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how deeply ingrained this pattern was in our family. For years, I had been the one who sacrificed my time, money, and energy to help everyone else. I paid for weddings, pitched in for medical bills, and even helped fund vacations. And I did it all without complaint because, well, that's what family does, right? But the truth was, I wasn't just helping out, I was being used. They saw me as a resource, not as a person with my own life and dreams. And when I stopped giving, when I finally put my foot down and said no, they acted as if I had betrayed them. I didn't realize just how much I had been carrying until I walked away from that Thanksgiving dinner. The weight of constantly being taken advantage of, the emotional strain of always being the one who held everything together, it all suddenly felt like too much. As I left my family behind, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't known in years. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I realized I had been sacrificing myself to keep everyone else happy, and it had taken a toll on my mental and emotional well-being. After I walked away, I started focusing on myself. I stopped answering late-night calls asking for favors. I stopped saying yes to everyone else's needs at the expense of my own. I began to invest in my own life, my own happiness, and my own peace. I even started going to therapy for the first time in years, something I had never made time for because I was too busy taking care of everyone else. For the first time in my adult life, I felt free. I wasn't defined by my role as the family caretaker or the one who always bailed everyone out. I was just me. And while it was hard to let go of the family dynamic I had known for so long, I knew it was the right choice. In the months that followed, I received text messages and phone calls from my family, all of them expressing their disappointment and anger. But I didn't respond. I had already made my decision, and I was at peace with it. I finally realized that true family isn't about being there when it's convenient for others, it's about mutual respect and support. And for the first time in my life, I was no longer the one holding everything together. I had found my own balance, and I was finally living for myself. For years, I had been the go-to person for my family, the reliable one, the one who always said yes to every request, no matter how big or small. I would lend money, help out with my nieces and nephews, and take on responsibilities that no one else seemed willing to handle. I was the one who held everything together, or so I thought. But when the time came for me to take a step back, to say no, I was met with shock, anger, and accusations. This wasn't just about helping out anymore. It had become a pattern of my family taking advantage of my kindness. It all started when my mother's 60th birthday was coming up. My sisters and the rest of the family decided to plan a trip to celebrate at a resort. But what really struck me was how it was all handled without my input. I wasn't even asked if I wanted to join. Instead, the plans had already been set, and when they needed me, they assumed I'd be the one to watch all the children while they were away. The tone of the conversation was casual, as if they were talking about a simple favor, but to me, it felt like an overwhelming demand. I tried to keep calm at first, thinking maybe I was overreacting, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. For years, I had been the reliable one, the one who never said no. I paid for family events, helped with loans, took care of my nieces and nephews, and never once complained. I convinced myself that this was just what family did for each other, but as the years went on, I started to feel like my sacrifices were being taken for granted. It wasn't just that they expected my help, they expected it without ever asking for my opinion or considering my needs. The more I reflected on it, the more I understood that this wasn't a healthy dynamic. My role in the family had become less about being a loved member and more about being a convenient resource. I was the one who could be counted on to step in when something went wrong, to lend a hand when they needed help. But when it came time for me to ask for something in return, they were nowhere to be found. The request to watch the children during the trip was just the final straw. I didn't want to be their default babysitter anymore. I didn't want to be the one who always sacrificed my own life and happiness for everyone else. When I finally said no, the response was not one of understanding or compassion. Instead, I was met with accusations of being selfish and immature. My mother, who had always relied on me, tried to brush it off as if I was just overreacting. She even tried to guilt trip me by suggesting I wouldn't enjoy the trip anyway and that the kids needed me. But what she failed to understand was that I needed a break too. I had been giving so much of myself for years that I had forgotten what it felt like to take care of my own needs. It was in that moment that I made the decision to walk away. I wasn't just walking away from their trip. I was walking away from the role I had been playing for years. I had been the dependable one, the one who put everyone else's needs before mine. But in that instant, I realized that I had to prioritize myself. I didn't owe them anything, and I didn't have to be the one who always fixed everything. As I left that dinner, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't felt in years. The weight of constantly being the one who held everything together was finally lifted. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. For the first time in my life, I was choosing myself. I was choosing to stop being the doormat, the person everyone leaned on without ever giving anything back. And while it hurt to walk away from my family, I knew that it was the only way I could find true peace and happiness. For most of my life, I had been the dependable one in my family, the one who always said yes when asked for help, no matter how much it cost me personally. Whether it was lending money, taking care of the kids, or handling unexpected emergencies, I was always there. I had convinced myself that this was just what family did for each other, that my sacrifices were just part of the deal. But over time, I began to realize how much I had been taken for granted, and the tipping point came when I was left out of a family celebration that should have included me. It started when my mother's 60th birthday was approaching. My sisters and the rest of the family had been planning a big trip to a resort in the mountains to celebrate, but here's the kicker. I wasn't even asked if I wanted to go. Instead, I was told it was already planned and that I would be staying behind to watch all the kids. The assumption was that, as the single, childless one, I would have nothing better to do than stay home and babysit. They didn't ask me what I wanted, what I needed, or if I had any plans of my own. They just expected me to say yes, as I always had. When the family gathered for dinner, the announcement was made. My mother and sisters were excitedly discussing the trip, with everyone seemingly oblivious to how I was feeling. When I asked why no one had mentioned the plans to me earlier, I was met with a curt response. I was told that I wouldn't be interested in the trip anyway, and that I would be happier staying behind with the kids. It wasn't about me being part of the celebration. It was about them using me as a convenient solution for their childcare needs. I tried to stay calm, but inside, I was boiling. I had always been the one to take care of everyone else, to put my own needs aside for the sake of the family. But at that moment, I realized how much I had been taken for granted. I wasn't being asked to be part of the birthday celebration. I was being used as a babysitter. I had spent years supporting them financially, emotionally, and physically, but it was never enough. My needs were always secondary to theirs. When I finally stood up and said no, I was met with shock and anger. My mother and sisters were upset, and the guilt-tripping began. They accused me of being selfish, of ruining my mother's birthday, and of not caring about family. But what they didn't understand was that I had spent my whole life caring for them, and I was tired. Tired of being the one who always said yes, tired of being the one who always put everyone else first. The more they tried to guilt-trip me, the more I realized that walking away was the best thing for me. I didn't owe them anything. I had given enough. For the first time in my life, I was choosing myself. I didn't want to be the one who always sacrificed my happiness for theirs. I didn't want to be the one who was constantly taken for granted. I wanted to live my life on my own terms. So, I made a decision. I walked away. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their guilt. I just needed peace. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And for the first time in years, I felt a sense of freedom. No more guilt. No more demands. No more feeling like I was just a tool for their convenience. It was my time to live for myself, and I was done putting everyone else's needs ahead of my own. Growing up, I was always the reliable one in the family, the one who stepped up when no one else did, the one who made sacrifices without hesitation. I convinced myself that this was what family meant, helping each other no matter the cost. But as the years went by, I began to feel the weight of this responsibility in a way I had never felt before. It wasn't just the financial support, the favors, or the emotional labor. It was the realization that I had become a tool for their convenience, and my own needs were completely overlooked. It all came to a head when my mother's 60th birthday was fast approaching. My family had decided to plan a big celebration, but instead of including me in the conversation, they simply made the decision for me. They organized a lavish resort vacation, something they knew I couldn't afford to go to, not because I didn't want to, but because they had never considered asking me what I wanted. And worse, they didn't even consider including me in the planning. What did they expect from me? The same old, obedient, selfless person I had always been, who never questioned the family's needs and always put myself last. But this time, I wasn't going to accept that. When they revealed the plan at a family dinner, the assumption was clear. I would stay behind and watch the kids. After all, I didn't have a family of my own, so I had nothing better to do. They didn't even ask me if I wanted to go. The message was clear. I was expected to be the babysitter while everyone else went off to have fun. It was as if my value in the family was solely based on what I could do for them. But I was done. As I sat there at the dinner table, listening to their excitement over the trip, I was paralyzed. How could they think this was okay? How could they think that my only purpose in life was to cater to their needs while they lived their lives? They had made this decision without consulting me, without asking if I had any plans of my own. I had sacrificed so much for them over the years, paying for bills, taking care of family emergencies, and supporting their dreams, and yet here they were, treating me as if my own desires didn't matter at all. The moment I stood up and said no, the atmosphere changed. My family was shocked. They expected me to say yes, to fall in line, just like I always had. But this time, I didn't. I told them that I wasn't going to be the one to stay behind, that I wasn't going to be the babysitter anymore. I told them I had every right to be part of the celebration too. And that was when the guilt trip began. They tried to manipulate me, to make me feel bad for not agreeing to their plans. They said I was being selfish, that I was ruining my mother's birthday, and that I was causing drama for no reason. But I wasn't the one causing drama. The drama was caused by their assumption that I would always be there to pick up the pieces, to cater to their needs while they carried on with their lives. I was done being the doormat, the one who always said yes, even when it meant sacrificing my own happiness. So, I walked away. I didn't let them guilt trip me into submission. I didn't let them continue to use me as their backup plan. And for the first time in a long time, I felt relief. I felt freedom. I wasn't living for them anymore. I was living for myself. And that was something I had never truly done before. The central message of this story is the importance of setting boundaries and recognizing one's worth, especially in family relationships. For years, the protagonists sacrificed their own happiness to meet the demands of family members, believing that selflessness was the key to love and belonging. However, They realized that true self-respect comes from valuing oneself and acknowledging when enough is enough. It's essential to remember that our worth is not determined by how much we can give to others, but by recognizing and honoring our own needs, desires, and limits. For older adults, who may have spent a lifetime caring for others, this lesson is particularly relevant. It's never too late to reclaim your own life, prioritize your well-being, and stop allowing others to take advantage of your kindness. This story teaches that love should be mutual and not conditional. It reminds us that while caring for family is important, we must also make space for our own happiness and peace of mind. In the end, true strength comes from knowing when to say no and being unafraid to put yourself first, regardless of the expectations placed upon you. This is a powerful reminder that we all deserve to live our lives fully, without guilt or compromise. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped you better understand the challenges of family betrayal and how to manage them in a healthy way. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Silent Wars for more helpful content. Your support means a lot to us, and we can't wait to see you in our next video.